Welcome back, guys. It's Kids Cooking Playground here, and today we're back for another video in Scratch. And today we will be making the third part of the Hero War game. I've been making the series. So we have the first part, which is just a drawing of all the sprites, and we have the second part, which is just some coding for these sprites. Yeah, just a few coding, and then now we're starting on the third part of the series. So we're going to go to our sprite 1 and get started right into it. Go to sprite 1, and then it's just a green screen just like that. And then the code is, when I receive start game, it'll go to the middle, x0, y0, and then it'll go to the back layer. So go to back layer. And set it to hidden mode, but we can also set it here. So set ghost effect to 100. And then we also have a hide to make sure it's completely hidden and not blocking anything. Then we have a forever. If then the mouse is down, if I can find it. If then mouse down, it will set. We need a new variable. So x. This will determine the location of the projectile, x and y. So it will set x to mouse x, and then it will set our other one y to mouse y, just like that. Then we broadcast. We need a new broadcast, so get a broadcast and wait. Broadcast shoot arrow. So it'll broadcast shoot arrow and wait. And when we mean arrow, we mean all types of projectiles that it will be shooting. So now let's move on to the projectile. So when I receive shoot arrow, it will show and it will go to the player. Then it will point towards the player. And it will repeat until touching the edge. It will move 30 steps until it touches the edge. So let's move 30 steps. And then, so we do have this extra additional part of code, which is we need an if then. So the Fairy Queen, since it's really weak, its base attack, we made it so the arrow goes quicker, so you can get more shoots in. So if hero selected is equal to 3, which is the fairy, then it will repeat until touching edge. It'll move 55 steps until it's touching the edge. So this one's a lot quicker than the other two, because the Fairy Queen's kind of weak on the space attack. And then we have a hide, and it will go to the player. So the projectile that we're shooting from the heroes is actually not a clone. Instead, it's a single sprite, so you can't shoot a lot of arrows at once. It's because the enemies are also clones, and we do not want to have like two clones together, which it won't work. So let's just add this extra part of code. When the green flag is clicked, hide. So forever, if then hero selected is equal to 1, so take the equal sign. So if hero selected is equal to 1, which is the elf warrior, then it will switch costume to costume 1, which is the first costume, as you can see over here, which is the arrow. So, and then we just duplicate this. If hero selected is equal to 2, then we'll switch costume to costume 2. And if hero selected is equal to 3, then we'll switch costume to costume 3. So now let's move on to the first ability, the second ability, and the third ability. So the first ability, when the green flag is clicked, it will hide. And we need a new variable, which is timer first. And this timer first is the first ability timer, which will give you the power-ups after a certain allotted time. So it will set timer first to 0. So it's always 0 because you haven't started the game yet. And it'll set a new variable, power up 1. These are really important variables. So power up 1. And it'll also set the power up 1 to 0 because you have 0 power-ups right now. And it will hide the variable power up 1. Then let's get started on this part. So when I receive, this will determine when you get each of the power-ups. So when I receive the start game, it will show the variable power up 1, and it will set timer first to 0. You also forever, and we need this. So wait 1 second, wait 1 second, it will change timer first by 1. So it will add 1, it'll change the timer will go up and up and up. And then that's when it determines when you get a power up. You need if then. So you'll get 1 power up if then timer first is equal to 8. So after 8 seconds, because after wait 1 second, it'll change the timer first. Then it will change the power up 1 by 1, and that's how you get 1. And then it'll set the timer first back to 0, so you can restart the timer counting up to 8, and then until you get another power up. That's how the power up works. And then now we have each of the power up parts. So when space key, we get this one, but we change it to 1 because to activate the first ability, it's the key 1. And you need an if then hero selected is equal to 1. So each of them have different powers. So this one's just going to be the elf warrior. So hero selected is equal to 1. Then if then, so take an if then right here. If then, get a greater sign. If then the power up 1. So if you have is greater than 0. So if you have more than 0 power ups, you can use them. Then it will switch the costume to costume 1. Because that's the first ability, so it's this one. And then it will show. And then now it will show. And then it will go to the player. And it will point towards mouse pointer. And it will repeat until, so the first ability for the elf is the spectral arrow, which goes through all the enemies and does a huge amount of damage. So it will repeat until touching the edge, and it will move 30 steps until it's touching the edge. And then now it will hide. Right there. And then it will go back to the player after it touches the edge. Go to the player, and then it will change the power up 1 by -1. So change power up 1 by -1 because you used 1 power up. So I'm sorry, but it's actually if then else statement. So we go to if then else, and then we just take out this if then. Sorry, and then we put this power up equals 1, and we put all this code back into here, and then just like that. We put it back into here. And then we have an else right here. And it will broadcast a new message, no item to use. No item to use. So that's just the first ability. It'll just go through all the enemies just like that. And now we'll code the second one. So if then hero selected is equal to 2, which is the mage, equal to 2, then it will, so you need another if then else, and since this one's a different power up, then we'll just code it like this. So we take an if then else, then we take this, if the power up 1 is greater than 0, Then it will switch costume to the costume 2. It will show. It'll go to the player. Go to player. And it'll point towards the mouse pointer. And it will repeat until. So we need repeat until. Repeat until touching edge. After that, it'll move 40 steps until the edge. So this one goes a little bit quicker for the second ability. For the first ability, for the second person. And then after that, it will hide. It will go to the player. Go back to the player. Go to player. And it will change power up 1 by -1. Else, it will broadcast this no item to use broadcast. And now let's code the third ability. So the third ability is completely different. It's not a projectile. Instead, it heals the Fairy Queen. So we have an if then. Hero selected is equal to 3. So hero selected is equal to 3. And we'll take this if then else. And then we'll take this if power up 1 is greater than 0. So and then move it down here. So if power up 1 is greater than 0, then it will go to the front layer. It will switch costume to costume 3. And then it will show. And it will go to the player. Then it will set the lives back to 850. So it heals the Fairy Queen all the way back up. That's why the Fairy Queen is good. So set lives to 850. It'll wait 0.6 seconds. And then it'll hide. Then it will change power up by -1. And then it will wait 1 second. Then it will broadcast no item to use again. So that's basically the first ability. It's a huge hunk of code, just like that. Okay, so now let's move on to the second ability. So the second ability is kind of similar to the first ability. So let's just move some of the code into the second one. Let's just move that. We just need to do some quick changes to these pieces of code. Okay, when the green flag is clicked, it will hide, and then it will set timer second. So this is a different one. Timer second. It will set the timer second to 0. So it's just like the timer first, but the second ability. And then it will set the power up to, which we need to make that to, power up to, and it will set the power up to also 0. And it will hide the variable power up to. Then, when we start the game, it will show the variable power up to. It will set timer second to 0. And forever, wait 1 second, change timer second by 1. And then if timer's second, so when you change that, if timer second is equal to 12, so after 12 seconds, it will change timer, or not timer second, power up to by 1. Then it will set timer second back to 0. So let's zoom in that. Yeah. And then now let's move on. So when 2 keys pressed, which is to activate the second ability, if then hero selected is equal to 1, and power up is greater than 0, it will set size to 45%. And then it will switch to costume 1, which is the first one, which is the death arrow, and we have the lightning, and then we have the fairy queen teleport. So have that, switch costume to costume 1, show, it'll go to the player, point towards the mouse pointer, and then it'll repeat until touching edge, but it'll move 50 steps instead. And this is a one-shot arrow. And it'll hide, go back to player, and then change power up 2 by -1. Else it'll broadcast no item to use. So it's just easy to change from here. And then if the hero select is equal to 2, it's also a projectile. So if the power up 2 is greater than 0, it will set the size to 45%. It'll switch costume to lightning, which is the second one. It will show, it'll go to the player, point towards the mouse pointer. It'll repeat until touching the edge, but it'll move 25. So lightning goes a little bit slower. And it'll hide, go to player, and then change power up 2 by -1. And it'll broadcast no item to use. And now we're already on the third one. The third one's different though, because it's also a projectile. So let's take this out. So it will go to player. Go to player. Yeah, it'll go to the player. It'll point towards mouse pointer. It will show. It'll switch costume to costume 2, which is the fairy one, even though, because lightning's in the middle. It'll switch costume to costume 2, and it will glide. So take this. Glide 0.75 seconds to, oh, wrong one, sorry, that's this one, with the X and Y. So glide 0.75 seconds to X, mouse X, and then mouse Y. And then it will change the power up 2 by -1. And then it'll broadcast fairy escape. And this is when the fairy teleports to wherever the arrow lands. So fairy escape. And it will hide. And it does a lot of damage too. And it will broadcast. Yeah, so all of this goes here. It goes in the if then place, and then in the else, it's gonna be broadcast no item to use. So sorry for that. It's just you move it back up there, and then you have the no item to use in the else. So yeah, so this is the second ability. It's a big hunk. And then now let's go back to the player and let's code the fairy escape. So when I receive fairy escape, it will go to X. We need this one. So go to X, get a plus sign. So put 2 plus signs just like that. It will go to X position. So use the tricky block. So it's this one, the backdrop number of stage. It's this tricky one. If you change the second one, you have to go to second ability. So go to X position, a second ability, plus 10. So it lands on the place we want it to. And then duplicate this. It will. And then it's Y position, a second position, a second ability. And then it'll plus 40. Then we will point towards mouse pointer. Switch costume to costume 4, which is the teleport beam. It'll wait 1.2 seconds, and it'll switch costume back to costume 3. And that's what we have here. And that's the fairy escape code. So now let's work on the third ability. So the third ability, we just take what's from the second ability and change it a little bit. So let's just move it here. Let's move it here. Let's move it here. So we have everything in the third ability. And then you just have to make some changes, of course. So in the green flag click, it will hide and it will set timer third. So we do have another timer. We'll set timer third. It will set timer third to 0. And then it will set power up 3, which we also need the power up 3. Set the power up 3 to 0 as well. And then we also can't put 2 at once, so we have to set a new variable in progress. Sorry. Set in progress to 0. And also hide the variable power up 3. Okay, and we'll set the in progress to 0. And it'll hide the variable power up 3. So when I receive start game, it'll show the variable power up 3. It'll set the timer third to 0. And then forever, it'll wait 1 second. It would change timer third by 1. And then this is every 30 seconds you get the third ability. So we need to change this to timer third too. So if timer third is equal to 30, then it will change timer third by 1. No, I mean power up 3. Sorry. Power up 3 by 1. And then it will set timer third back to 0. So this should be all 3. And then when the key 3 is pressed, if it was set in progress to 0 all the way up here. To 0. Okay, so let's get started on this part. So if then hero select is equal to 1, then we actually have, it will switch the costume to Griffin A. It will set the size to 65%, so it's not that big when it comes down. And it will point in direction -90. And then, so we have this. If power up 3 is greater than 0. Okay, we also have to change the second ability. So we actually need to change this to 2. So this should all be 2. So this is actually power up 2 is greater than 0. This is also power up 2. And then we also need to change this to power up 2. So this should all be 2. And so over here we have power up 3 is greater than 0. Then it will change. It will change power up 3 by -1. And then we have the in progress thing, so you can't use 2 at one time. So we have an if then statement just like that. So if then, we have it here, over here. If then in progress is equal to 0, then it will wait 0.1 seconds and it will set the in progress to 1. So that shows it is in progress. And then it will go to, do you have a position for this? It will go to, I put 213 Y144, so it's on the right side, and it will come down like that. And it will, so let's just take this out real quick. It will show, and it will glide 1 second to X2492, so right here. And we'll have this code right here. So it will repeat, so under the glide, it will repeat 2 times. It will switch costume to Griffin A. It will wait 0.4 seconds. And then you duplicate this, put it under, and it'll switch costume to Griffin B. And then you duplicate it again, switch costume to Griffin C. And then we do have a broadcast that goes with this. So it'll broadcast right under the repeat 2. It'll broadcast a new message, bomb. This is when it explodes everyone on the map. And then after that, it'll switch the costume to Griffin B. And it will glide 1 second, so it'll glide away. Glide 1 second to, I have a position for this, -183 Y 157. So it's just up here. Then it'll hide. And it will set in progress to 0. In progress to 0. So that's when you can use it again, since it's 0 now. And then we have an else, and then broadcast no item to use. Okay, and now let's continue working. So if hero select is equal to 2, and it'll do if power up 3 is greater than 0, then it will, let's just take this all out. It will change power up 3 by -1, and then we have this whole in progress part. So we need an if then in progress is equal to 0, which means it's not being used at this moment, so you can use it. In progress is equal to 0. Then it will wait 0.1 second. Wait 0.1 second, and it will set in progress to 1. After that, it will have point in direction 90. Then it'll switch costume to the apprentice. So when it's the apprentice, it will shoot these stars to damage enemies. And then after that, it'll set size to 20%. So it's a pretty small turret. Set size to 20%. Then it will set rotation style left, right, so it doesn't like flip over all over the place. Set rotation style left, right. Then it will go to X. I do have a position for this. X 199. Or at this point, just write 200. Go to X 200. Y -9. And then it will show. Then it will repeat 15 times, so it will shoot 15 turret balls at the enemy. Repeat 15 times. Let's just throw this all away. It will broadcast shoot apprentice's star. So we will get into the apprentice's star and all the other parts, the bomb and all that stuff, and we'll code that next part. So repeat 15 times, and it'll broadcast shoot apprentice's star right under the show. Then it will hide, just like that, and it will set in progress back to 0, so you can use it again. So now let's work on the third ability for the third hero. So if hero select is equal to 3, you need if power up 3 is greater than 0, then it will change. So we need to change power up 3 by -1. Then you need this if then. So if then here, sorry, up here, if then in progress is equal to 0, so in progress is equal to 0, then it will wait 0.1 seconds. It will set in progress to 1. Then it will go to X, I do have a position for this, X 19 -10, and I'll point in direction 90. It will switch costume to the defender chip. Let's just delete all this actually. Switch costume to defender chip. It will set size to 100%, so large shield that blocks, and it will show. Then it will glide 1 second to, we do have a position for this, -60 Y9. -9. And after that, it'll wait 10 seconds over there and teleport people back. It will hide. and it will set in progress back to 0. Okay, and now we will have when the key 3 pressed, then if then we need equal sign. So if then in progress is equal to 1, then it will broadcast in progress. And this is when you have like the wait, oh, this thing's in progress thing. Okay, so let's look over all the code and I'll show you the game. Okay, so I looked at the game and it's actually, so you go to the projectile, I messed up here, so when I receive shoot arrow, it's not pointing towards player, it's pointing towards mouse pointer. So sorry about that. That's the only thing that doesn't seem to be working, but I just changed it now. So let's just go hide all the variables, so we'll clear it up a little bit. So let's hide all this, in progress. Okay, let's take a look. So we have the 3 heroes, shows you the lives. Okay, so we have the elf warrior. Okay, it does seem to be shooting like that. And then let's just wait until we get more power-ups. Let's show power-up 1 again. Where is power-up 1? There it is. Okay, so I didn't put this in the part earlier, so let's add it over here. So it will set the lives. So if hero select is equal to 1, it'll set lives to 1,200. I remember I added it, but I don't know. Maybe it didn't save. So, and then it'll set the lives to 1,000. And then it'll set the lives to 850. So that's the third one, the second one, and the first one. So since I didn't add that in the last part, just add it over here. It'll set the lives in the player. It'll set the lives 1,200, 1,000, and 850. So let's choose the hero that we want. So let's see if it works. I'll pause the video and then I'll come back after when I get a few power-ups. Okay, so we have power-ups for all of them, so let's see if it works. Projectile seems to be working. The normal power-up 1, you see that works. And then we have the death arrow, and then we have the griffin. So it seems to be working, and it should work for all the other ones as well. So anyway, please like, share, subscribe, and comment in the comment section below what else games you want to see on our channel. And I'll see you guys next time.